Yo, what's up, guys? We're live. We're going to be doing another UFC betting breakdown this week. It's for UFC Vegas 93. So, thanks everyone that's going to be joining us for this stream. But yeah, Fitz, what's up, man? How you doing tonight?
Good, man. I mean, we're just talking about it, just watching the finals, getting locked in for tomorrow as Euros started today. So, good day for sports, enjoying it, but really just locking in for the UFC tomorrow.
Yeah, you were saying you're starting to think the Mavs might be able to maybe do something, right? You're kind of on the train.
Yeah, of course.
Because
I
man, I
always
mean
got the
that
wishful
was an
thinking.
interesting one today.
They smoked them tonight. I mean, it was
Yeah.
domination. Like, it wasn't even. So, you never know. I mean, it would be something, but never happened before in the NBA in any leg of the playoffs 3-0. So, it would be literal history, but, you always got to root for it.
Yeah, man. I mean, at least they got one because there's only I think 10 teams that got swept, so they would have been like the 11th team that got swept in the finals. So they avoided that. But yeah, man. I mean, let's talk about some of this other shit that's been going on. It's funny. I'm not gonna blame you, but I'm gonna say you kind of jinxed it, bro, because you were like, "Oh, we got so much good shit
So
going on,"
hyped
and
for the
then
coming up
and then
fights.
fucking Chimaev gets pulled, and then freaking the McGregor fight's now officially off. So yeah, man. I mean, isn't that kind of crazy? It's like Ikram Aliskerov, he was supposed to fight tomorrow, right, against Chirkoli, who that was a guaranteed win, and now they're throwing him
That's
in
got to
a
be the biggest like jump up like in opponents like from someone
yeah.
you're training for to someone you're fighting in like the history of the world. Like, how do you go from Tricoli to Robert Whitaker?
I'm sure he's happy as hell about it though. It's like he just jumped the line all the way to like number one contender fight. So I don't know. I don't really know what Ikram did to deserve that one, but they had to kind of scramble and get someone
I
in
mean, he
there,
said
right?
yes at the end of the
Yeah,
day.
I
He,
know.
he said yes to the fight. That's what he did to deserve it. He was willing.
Yeah,
And,
I was
definitely
seeing
on credentials.
Imavov too was like his name was in there, but I don't know what happened with him. Like if he
I
maybe
don't
he
think he
declined
wanted
it.
it, dude. Imavov, I bet he declined it. He said, that's too short notice. He's not willing to take the risk.
Yeah, and talk about taking risks. I mean, what do you think about Poetan? Coming in like fighting at UFC 303. Even though I guess Jerry too, man. I mean, both these guys stepping up. They're making a new main event. Connor's off. I mean, I guess it's not the same, but it's still a good fight. So yeah, man, you excited for that one?
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know what to think of that one. I mean, I think short notice, to be honest, for me, favors Yuri because for me, Yuri is just like more than any fighter has the mindset like ready to go anytime. He's a fighter's fighter, and technically, he's not always there, and that's I kind of look to fade Yuri. And that's why I was, so heavy on Alex knockout the first time. But short notice, kind of like, shit's hitting the fan. It's kind of like, for me, it favors Yuri, but, I still got to look into it. I still got to think about it. But it's going to be, that's a hell of a fight. That's a hell of a main event. That's, a main event worthy of any pay-per-view, international fight week included, that's an awesome, awesome fight. It headlined MSG for a reason. And I know it's going a little under the radar, but Diego Lopez versus Brian Ortega too is sick, man. I mean, respect to
Yeah.
both of them. Lopez, we know the savage he is, but Brian Ortega too. I mean, this is a dangerous fight for him, dude.
Yeah, Ortega. I mean, there's people that were saying like he could fight Ilya at the Sphere and all that. Now he's getting like a super hard fight. So yeah, props to him for
Super
taking
tough
that.
fight.
But yeah, I don't know. I don't know about the short notice. It's like because Alex, every fight he has is a short notice fight. So it's like I don't know. To me, I can't say it favors either guy really. I think it's like,
This is like really, really. This is 2 weeks.
but they fought on the same day. I mean, and now they
But
got the
this is
same
two
amount of
weeks. I mean,
notice.
I maybe it's three
Yeah,
weeks because I mean there were rumors going around last week that this fight was, signed, whatever, going. So maybe three, but less than a month is like really, really short notice. Like I know Alex kind of fought short notice for UFC 300, but that was like 6 weeks. That was like almost. This is like really last minute, really crazy, and for it to be like a high level championship fight, like just props to both these guys, especially Alex because he has everything to lose. Man, he's the champ. I mean, just so much respect for what he's done to the sport, dude. Put the UFC on his back, really, in the past 2 years, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I mean, I feel like he's like, there's obviously like those other guys that are stars that don't fight that much. Like we're talking about Conor McGregor and these other John Jones, but he's like the biggest active star in the UFC today. I feel like I don't think even Izzy. I mean, he hasn't fought in a while. I mean, do you think he's bigger than like Sean O'Malley? I guess there's a debate with some guys, but it's like he's definitely like just by fighting so often and taking these risks, coming in short notice and doing all this stuff, he's became like one of the biggest guys in the UFC. Can't even speak English, man. So yeah, shout out to Alex for sure.
I think he's right on that same level as Sean O'Malley for like the casual fans, like everyday guy. But as far as like the UFC fans go, I would say he's one of the most beloved fighters in UFC history from what I've seen from like the really hardcore fans. I mean, everyone in the community really just adores this guy, really admires him, and he has all of our respect. And he's really started to gain that notoriety outside of the hardcore fan base, on a global scale. I mean, in his Instagram post, he said, short notice is no problem. He has his ancestors, his tribe with him. He's just a savage. Like,
yeah, dude. And then for Yuri, I mean, what do you think? You think are you leaning with him actually winning the fight since you like the short notice aspect of it, or are you still gonna go with Alex?
yeah, I think I'll be on Alex, man. I mean, I picked Alex. I was super confident in Alex in the first fight. I mean, I'll have to rewatch Yuri versus Rakic one more time because I don't really remember that fight, great. Because from what I remember, Rakic was kind of dominating until he got slept, until he got overwhelmed. Um, and I remember I have seen the Yuri Alex one fight plenty of times, and for anyone saying that was a bad stoppage, I would completely disagree. I think Yuri was well on his way out of that fight. Alex was just gonna do a lot more damage. It was the same exact finish in my opinion as Alex Izzy won in the UFC, where the ref kind of just stepped in to save Yuri and save Izzy from taking a lot more unnecessary damage. And it was maybe a little early in some people's eyes, but when you have someone as dangerous as Poatan in front of you, you kind of got to make that decision, for the fighter's safety. But yeah, I would say this is a little closer than the first fight on short notice. In my opinion, to beat Alex, you got to wrestle him. You got to use the grappling. You got to at least mix it in. No one in the UFC will beat him in a kickboxing match. I guess Izzy did it the one time, but outside of that, especially at 205, I don't think anyone can strike with him. You know what I mean? So, if Yuri can implement that game plan and mix in some takedowns like he did in that first round of the first fight, maybe. But I'm not too sure about it. What about you?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a weird fight for me too because I don't know why but Yuri has like a weird thing about him where it's like hard for me to see him losing like two times to the same guy like in a row. Like I don't know. Yuri seems like he's just like I don't know. He'll be a man on a mission for this fight. But the first fight I did pick Pereira, and I like Pereira's skill set more. It's just I don't know. I think Jury definitely is live in this one. I mean, Alex was injured also in that fight to get like a toe injury or something after his last fight at UFC 300. So I don't know how much he's been like training hard and everything like that. And another thing is, I mean, you think he's gonna have issues with the weight cut, Pereira?
I mean, I don't know. How heavy could he walk around at 220 to 230 max? I mean,
I don't know. I just hear a lot of people always saying like, "Oh, he's like huge and all that." Like, Anthony Smith was saying he thought he was gonna miss weight, which I'm like, I don't know about that, but
I mean, I would think he's never missed weight before. I add to maybe he made 185. That's 20 pounds lighter than what he has to weigh in at. So in my opinion, it might be a little bit of a tough cut, and it definitely is short notice. I don't think he ballooned that much. Like, I don't think he's past anywhere like 240. And especially if he had 3 weeks to a month, he'll make the weight. In my opinion, I don't think that will be too much of a problem.
Yeah.
But I mean, maybe the weight cut will be more draining. Maybe his chin. I mean, we've seen him slep before. Maybe it will be more draining. Maybe it will have more of an effect on his chin. He'll be a little more depleted. I think the short notice is a huge factor, man. I mean, this is super, super short notice for a 5-round fight. This is a championship fight. We don't know what the gas tanks are looking at. Like you said, Alex is injured. He's not. It's hard to say he's in 5-round shape. I mean, maybe he's just gonna go out there and headhunt, and we get like the greatest 1st-round fight of our lives. Like, imagine that. Like, Poatan is just going like, "Hey, I'm knocking this dude in the 1st round out, or I'm going out against Yuri." Like, imagine that.
I mean, that's Yuri's game plan in every fight.
Literally, I'm not
I mean,
against Poatan though, because he was wrestling. Like, he was
still ended up doing
humping
it, though.
him.
That's how he got knocked out, because he like fucking was running in like a retard. So I don't know. I mean, but Yuri's a beast. I mean, his last fight, that fight was so crazy, dude. Like, I remember we were talking about it or whatever, and like Rockets did like everything he needed to do to get the win, and then he still lost though, just because Yuri's
too much of a savage. Yeah.
But yeah, man, I'm excited for these fights too. I mean, I definitely would have liked to see Conor fight, but I mean, on paper, I think the card like skill wise is better, but obviously it's not
definitely. I mean, it gained a great fight in Ortega and Lopez.
Yeah, and then Anthony Smith is fighting Olberg now instead
which
of
is
Jamal.
A wash. I mean, Olberg, in my opinion, is gonna. I picked Anthony Smith. I had. Oh no!
I mean, he could just snipe him on pop, but like, I don't know.
Olberg's gonna snipe him.
Olberg is beating legit bums, dude. Like every guy that he's fought is like. I don't know. It'll be a fun fight. Honestly, I think like Anthony Smith will do okay if he doesn't just get put out cold with one shot. Like, but it's obviously a possibility for sure. But yeah, his last fight he did get that sub, but dude, like, I don't know what the fuck Petrino was doing. It was like he like that looked like you literally like told him in the back, like, bro, I'm just gonna let you guillotine me like not in this fight. It's like, what the fuck was he doing? But yeah, I mean, Anthony Smith got it done, but yeah, man, let's get into this card though. UFC
real
Vegas
quick though, what do you
think
think's going on with Conor? You think he's gonna? You think they're gonna rebook it, or we're cooked? Do you think never again for Conor?
Well, I think. I mean, I feel like he's gonna fight again, but it's hard. It's getting like harder to believe it,
Yeah,
but what if like? I don't know if it'll be this year though, like because.
I mean, they're saying it'll be back maybe a couple months. I seen the Salt Lake City card could get moved to Vegas, but I mean, it's hard to have any faith at this point.
If you're
really.
Fucking Mike Chandler, are you gonna be like?
Oh, Chandler at this point is taking the fight no matter what. Chandler's taking the. I mean, finding an opponent for Conor is no problem. I mean, come on, this is red panty night, but. I mean, at this point, even for me, like the most diehard, Conor believer you'll ever have, it's getting hard to keep faith, him not making this date.
He says the king will be back. I mean,
I hope,
man. I mean, hopefully, I was getting ready for it. I mean, obviously, it was close. I mean, they wouldn't have sold all those tickets for the press conference. It must have he must have gotten injured like right around then. I mean,
that weekend. I think it was probably the weekend before the presser.
Yeah, and it's not even like no one knows what the injury is at all, right? Like where.
I mean, I think I think it's something with his foot, with his leg. He posted something on his Instagram story. I'm not sure, but I would almost be certain it's something with that same leg he had broke, whether it's the foot, the ankle, something about that, it would make a lot of sense. And he's posted at it, and that was the original rumor. It was like his foot. But yeah, apparently, it's not serious. He won't be out for too long, but just who knows at this point, man.
Yeah. Yeah, man, crazy. I mean, honestly too, like they had like the biggest gate in UFC history for that fight too. So a lot of people could be getting their money back though. I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, apparently they're offering refunds. UFC is giving refunds, so at least
I
good
saw
on the UFC for that.
We're saying that the VIP they weren't refunding it, but I bet you they will eventually though. I don't know. I mean, but we'll see. But yeah, I mean, I wonder what, like, I'm about to look at these prices when people start selling the tickets to see
Yeah,
what they are. Maybe
you'll
it'd be
get a
like a good
steal.
ass deal. Yeah, but yeah, man, a lot of shit going on. But yeah, what do you think about? Did you end up finding some bets on this card? I know you didn't really like it earlier in the week, but
Yeah, I like a couple of the favorites. I mean, we'll get into it. I like Quinlan a lot. Ulanbekov, that fight falling off just from like a viewership point of view. That was kind of like the best fight on the card, maybe outside of the main event. So I
yeah,
mean, it was already a pretty weak card, and losing that fight is a huge loss to me. I think this is one of the weaker cards they could put on, but I still think there's slots. I'll be on Nurmagomedov, as an underdog early on, and we'll see how it goes. I'm ready to get into it. Every week, no matter what the level of fights is. I'm always gonna be excited, always gonna look for some value, throughout the card. As are you. So whatever, it's gonna be better than fucking PFL last night. So
yeah, for sure, man. But first fight of the night. Since you got a bet on it, I'll let you go first. What made you put the play in, and what line did you get, and everything like that?
so I mean, I haven't bet it yet. I'll bet it tomorrow. Whatever FanDuel has it on, but I'll be on Nurmagomedov. I was kind of all week. Just I think him at plus 150 is good value. This is more of a pick'em fight. Definitely could go either way, and it's just gonna be like a small play. Just kind of looking at the value. I think he'll be able to get some control time, and even on the feet, I think it's a fairly close fight. Maybe Costa is a bit better than I expect him, but I just don't really rate him for whatever reason. I don't really think he's that great of a fighter. And Shylin, I think he's put it together before in the UFC. So at this plus 150 line, I just like it. I just like the value there. This is more of a pick'em fight in my eyes.
Yeah, to me, I mean, it's just a pass for me, but I do feel like Costa is going to win personally, just because I do think there's a decent difference in the stand up. And Costa's get ups are pretty good. I feel like Nerdy and Becky, it's weird, man. It's like the judges, they don't reward control at all anymore, literally, like at all. Like if you get a takedown, you're on top for like 3 minutes and 30 seconds, 4 minutes or something. You're on the guy's back, and they get up and they like rock you one time. They're going to give that other guy the round, it seems like these days. Like, so to me, that kind of sucks. Like, um, it's like a flaw in the judging. They like went too far to the damage side, but I do feel like that's a big factor nowadays in these fights. Like if Nerdy and Becky takes him down, I'm not sure how much damage he's going to be doing. I don't know how much like threatening submissions he's going to be doing. I feel like it's going to be a lot of control without much going on, and I think Costa is going to just do a little more damage and get the win. So I feel like it's going to go to decision though, and I think Costa win. But I don't know what's the line on the fight to go to decision and the over. Do you have that? If not, I can let me see. I could probably pull it up here.
I think I'll be able to refresh it and have it because it should be up by now. But yeah, definitely. Fight goes to decisions minus 115. So I completely agree.
Yeah,
Even
that's a decent
even
line, I think, right there.
even 100%, even more than the money line. I definitely like that fight goes to decision line a lot better at even money. I think that's definitely a spot I'll be on as well. Um, and I agree with what you said with the judging. I mean, that's definitely something you need to be attentive when you're betting on these fights. Is control time has really been negated. I figure the UFC brass had some sort of meeting with the judges, with the athletic commissions, which said, "Hey, control time. We don't want to. We don't. That's not the product we want to put on for the viewers. We want to see people trying to finish fights, is what I imagine, and that's really been emphasized. So I think you bring up a really good point, but I still think this should be a little bit of a more closely lined fight. So I'll be on the dog here, but I think the best bet you could have is just take the fight to go to decision right at even money there, and I think that's a really safe, really good bet.
Yeah, I think that'll hit for sure. But next, I guess we'll talk about this fight. Yeah, Josephine Knudsen taking on Julia Pastri, and lines kind of stayed the same. I think like it's been moving, but kind of leveled out the same as it opened, or I saw it earlier in the week, pretty much. And I don't know. I mean, this one, if I had to bet it, I would still bet on Pastri. But I'm probably gonna pass the fight, and I feel like it's a really, really close fight. It's like a coin flip. I think Pastri on the feet is really fun to watch. She does a good job pushing the pace and being aggressive. And Knutson's more technical, but I think it'll be a back and forth stand up fight. Maybe Knutson will have some control time and kind of squeak the decision. But yeah, if I had to bet it, I would bet on Pastri. But like I said, probably a pass for me this fight. I just don't really I don't know. I don't like the fight that much in terms of from a betting angle.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree with you. I think Knutson, really, I mean, I think she is well trained and has a good fight IQ. She's a very good minute winner. She can win on the ground, win in the feet. Good activity. But I think Pastri is live here. You kind of originally sold me on her, and I was really kind of almost leaning towards her, despite me liking Knutson as a prospect. Training out at All Star Gym in Sweden. I know a lot. Goes into her being out there. That's a highly credentialed gym and stuff. But watching Pastri, I think this is really going to be a close fight. So this has got to be a pass for me too. And if you're going to bet it, I would bet the dog. In a close women's fight, this is going to be a toss-up fight. It's going to go to decision, and it's probably going to be 29-28 either way. I ultimately, will agree with you. I think Knutson will get the job done by decision, but if it goes the other way, it would not shock me at all. So if you're looking for some value on the card, I think Pastri is a live dog, but I just don't have the confidence in her to get it done to make an official bet to make her my pick.
Yeah, man. And then up next here we got Jekka Sergi. He's taking on Weston Wilson, and kind of a complete shit fight to me. I mean, Sergi's really undersized and kind of just a wild striker, but he definitely has knockout power. And then Weston Wilson, has horrible striking, and I don't know. I mean, the guy when he gets hit, it looks like he's like a crackhead in a fight or something. Like the dude's reactions are, I don't know, man. Like he's just like the way that he got knocked out too by Gene Silva was so bad, bro. Like that follow-up shot was like one of the worst punches I've ever seen landed in a fight. It was fucking brutal, man. So Weston Wilson, I mean, plus 280, the line isn't good enough, man. Like if he was like plus 500 or something, maybe I would I don't know, even then it'd be tough, but I feel like this fight, it's like he could go out there and get a front choke or something. I mean, I think he's way better on the ground, but he's probably just gonna get sparked. Like so that's kind of what I think is gonna happen.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna do it, dude. I mean, feel free. I mean, I'm gonna get roasted. I'm gonna pick Weston Wilson to be the worst fighter to ever get a win in the UFC octagon, man. I mean, at plus 300, plus 280, whatever. I mean, against Jekka Sergi, I just got it. And really, I'm ready to look like a fool here. I know it's coming, but whatever. I just Jekka over 300 as a favorite is a little insane to me, even against Weston Wilson. But who knows? Who knows? I'm sure I get made a fool here in this fight, but I'm gonna pick Weston Wilson, and if he wins, it will be one of the most unimaginable things in UFC history, because Weston Wilson getting a win here would be improbable, and I'm gonna predict it. Maybe it will come true. Maybe I'll look ridiculous and he'll get absolutely splattered like he did in. but not for nothing. I mean, Gene Silva and Joe Anderson Brito, those are two hammers. I mean, those are two both, in my opinion, leagues above someone like Jekka Sergi. And I know the line was a lot wider in both of those fights, and I would, like you said, like Weston Wilson, at a bigger line, plus 250 doesn't really, plus 280 doesn't do him enough justice for how terrible he is, but whatever, man. I can't bet Jekka at over minus 300. That's ridiculous, dude. I mean, this guy, got smashed by some Anjon Jubilee who is absolutely garbage, dude. So
Yeah.
this shouldn't be UFC fight. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous that this is, even on the card, but I'll pick Weston Wilson, and if I'm ready to be roasted, I'm ready to be made a fool, I don't mind it.
Yeah, man. I mean, this is like a PFL main event right here. Nah, but yeah, man. I mean, Jeka Sergey, I don't think either of these guys are going to be in the UFC for long, but we'll see. I mean, I don't think Indonesia is like a big market. Like, it's like he's going to get the knockout and bring those fans, but
It's a huge
maybe.
country, though. I mean, there's a lot of people over there.
Yeah, that's
Billions.
true. I mean, they're definitely setting him up to get a highlight reel, man. But
Literally. This is the
he could
easiest
just
fight you
lose.
can give them.
Yeah. And then next fight, man, I mean Carly Judas, she was a lot bigger underdog. She was like almost plus 200, I think over plus 200 at certain points, and now almost a pick 'em here. I mean, she's still at plus 140, so not quite a pick 'em, but yeah, man. I mean, what do you think about this one? Have you kind of changed your mind on this one, or are you still going with Fernandez here?
Yeah, I like the line movement. I think it should be a closer fight, but I'll be on Fernandez here. You know, I think she's had a little bit of a tough slate in the UFC. You know, two tough fights with Jasmine Judavicius and Teresa Bleda. You know, those are two decent girls. You know, the both of them. And Carly Judas, in my opinion, just is a little too green, man. You know, she should have, you know, either been given another contender series fight or like a contract to fight in a fight pass promotion like LFA, you know, and maybe she'll be making, you know, really huge jumps in her game. But for me to do that here against Fernandez, you'd have to be making, you know, real improvements in the grappling, which in my opinion takes a lot of time, man. You know, I think people could improve in the striking a lot more rapidly than they can improving the offensive grappling, you know, developing that game. And on the feet, you know, I think Judice is good. You know, she's tough. She throws a lot of volume, but I think technically and the power lies with Fernandez. Fernandez has shown some holes in that, you know, grappling game, but I just don't think Judice has the experience or has the talent to exploit it. And I expect Fernandez to get her first win in the UFC here. And I like how the line has moved.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I mean, like I was saying earlier in the week, I'm a fan of Carly Judas's style. And she's gonna just have to try to fight high volume, I feel like, and win that way. I don't really think she has a wrestling threat. I feel like Fernandez is a better grappler too. I think she's a brown belt in jiu-jitsu. So, but yeah, I kind of agree with everything you said in terms of I think the power side is gonna be on Fernandez, the advantage there, and I feel like she's just gonna be Judas is going to be a little too hittable if she's fighting the same as she was in her last fight. And I think that the power difference from that Cole Kite girl that she was fighting, or the girl that came and fought in UFC, I think that's her name, or something like that,
The
for to
Lithuanian.
Fernandez is a big difference, man. So I feel like Fernandez's power, it's just going to show a little bit more. I think they're going to both land a lot of strikes, but Fernandez will just land the heavier shots. But yeah, this is a fight where I would look to live bet it though, because the first round, if Fernandez is landing like some heavy shots early and looking good, but you start to maybe see her slow down a little bit, or Judas picking up momentum, then maybe you could slide towards Judas, because Judas is going to be high volume. She's not going to get tired. So we've seen that in multiple fights from her. So that could be an angle there, but pre-flop bet, I'm just not sure. You know, I probably wouldn't bet either side on this one personally, but yeah, man, this next fight, I mean, Nate Maness versus Jimmy Flick. Um, I mean, Maness minus 500. I think you could
Minus
parlay him.
215 by knockout.
Yeah, I think you could parlay him, but it's like you're not really going to do much with that money line. Flick is, you know, he's live because he's dangerous with his grappling, and he'll go for it. But you know, that's really the only thing that he has in this fight. You know, I don't think that he can compete on the feet, and Maness should be smart enough to avoid that and get the win. You know, I feel like his takedown defense is good enough. It's not like Flick is a great wrestler,
Yeah,
so
exactly. Flick pulls
yeah.
guard. And I mean, I'm a Jimmy Flick fan. Like, I've been, you know, I've lost money on him a couple of times, you know, especially Charles Johnson. And you know, I had him his last fight against Malcolm Gordon as a dog. I won't be on him here. I think Maness is going to knock him out. Minus 250 as a knockout line at flyweight is kind of crazy, though. But the one thing that does scare me is, I don't know if it's just me, but like, do Nate Maness and Cody Durden not remind you of each other? Like, do you not ever get them mixed up? Like, for me, they're very similar, and we've seen what Jimmy Flick did to Cody Durden, you know, so you never know. But
I mean, they
I
don't
th-
fight the same at all, though.
I think Maness is
punch.
gonna
They're just
smash
punching.
him. I think Maness is gonna smash him. I think Maness has really heavy hands and is gonna hurt Jimmy Flick really bad. I mean, even against Malcolm Gordon, I know he won the fight, but he was not doing good in that first
Yeah.
round. I think if he takes any sort of those strikes from Maness, he's getting put away. I just wish that line wasn't so inflated, man. Like -250 on a knockout is really steep.
Yeah, I mean that's unbettable, dude. You can't
I agree.
you'd have to
Like
look
it's
at the
so
round
steep.
prop, like round I don't know, round 1 and 2. I mean, which round do you think it would happen? So and maybe I don't know what the odds would be on that, but I don't think it'll get to the third round personally, but I mean even the fight to go to decision is -650. It's like what the fuck. But their fight doesn't go to decision. But yeah, man, this next fight, I do have a bet on this one, so just give you guys that as I give you guys as the free bet on the video, and it's gonna be on Josh Quinlan, and I like him in the spot. I like the matchup. Adam Fugitt, tall, lanky guy, but I feel like he doesn't have great speed. So in this one, the range, like Quinlan has struggled with the range in his other fights in UFC, but he's facing really athletic strikers that could manipulate distance really well. And Fugit, I mean, he has a good left hook counter, or right hook, but really what he's throwing these kicks and his hands are not really the fastest. And his grappling is good. Like if he can time that takedown, get on top of Quinlan, I definitely think the bet could be in a little bit of trouble because Fugit has nice elbows. He has pretty decent submission game, it seems like, and maybe he could do something on the ground. But I feel like when they're standing up, Quinlan is going to be able to be in and out and be way faster. I think he's going to land a lot heavier strikes. He's going to find the chin. I mean, Fugit, he's been knocked out before, and he's lost to guys that have similar styles where like they blitz in and then kind of rest, blitz in and rest. And those explosive guys he struggled with a little bit. I don't see Fugit being able to get the takedowns, which is what I think he needs to do to win the fight. And even if he does, Quinlan, tough guy. I think he's like a brown belt. So I feel like he'll be able to at least survive, mitigate some damage, and come back in the next round and do good if he does get taken down in one round. But yeah, that's just what he has to avoid. If he doesn't get taken down here, he doesn't get clipped with the right hook or something, which I think is unlikely, but then I think he's going to get the job done. And I feel like he's going to get the knockout here. So I like Quinlan in the spot for sure.
Yeah, man, I'm in complete agreement. I like Quinlan. I think the movement, you're going to see a big, difference in the speed and the footwork on the feet. I think Fugit's, path to victory is making it dirty, getting on top. I almost hope he gets on top, gets a takedown in the first round, because I'll be looking to, if that happens, if that's how the fight plays out, I'll be all over the live line. I think Quinlan will be able to rally. I think you'll see a big, big difference in the athleticism, in the feet, in the movement, just kind of in the striking styles. I think Fugit's a little plodding. He's a little bit, heavy on his feet, where Quinlan's light, explosive, and I'm in complete agreement. I expect to knock out. I'm pretty confident. I'm all over Quinlan. I do see a path where Fugitt, makes it a messy fight. Get some takedowns. Get some control time, and maybe Quinlan's just not that great of a fighter. But that's not what I think is going to happen, and I'm pretty sure Quinlan's going to get a knockout here. I'm going to be on that, I'm glad we're in agreement there. And I just think there's a big difference in these guys' footwork and in their speed and in their movement. I think Quinlan's a lot slicker.
Yeah, and then one thing about Fugit, it's like he's only had a few fights in UFC, so you might think he's like a younger guy, but I think he's like 35 years old too, so he's older as well. So I think there's a lot of good advantages for Quinlan there. But next fight, Brady Heiston versus Garrett Armfield. This is another one where I was originally looking at Brady, thinking that grappling, wrestling, control angle, but I'm really on that method of thinking that I was talking about earlier, where just the way that I'm seeing these fights being judged and everything like that. If a fighter that's going into a fight, if they're really their only path to victory is to just take the guy down and hold him down and control him, and they don't really have like great ground and pound, they're not like a great submission artist, I'm struggling to bet those guys right now, unless it's like a huge gaping hole in the other person's game where it's like they just can't stop a takedown or can't get up. These people are getting really good, man, at getting up to their feet. You know what I mean? They're getting really good at being able to defend takedowns these days. I feel like people are getting a lot better with that. And it's just the evolution of MMA where I feel like a guy that's just a straight wrestler is not necessarily going to be as successful anymore, and they're not scoring their style as effectively. So I feel like Heiston maybe will get some decent control time, but ultimately I think Armfield's going to be the one doing all the damage. I like his boxing. I feel like he's a young guy. He's 27 years old, so he came into the UFC early, and he is going to keep getting better. He's at a good gym. He's a great athlete. So I feel like his wrestling is really what he struggled with in his career. And now he's getting a full camp to just defend takedowns and worry about wrestling because he knows that's what Heiston is going to do. So he's going to be prepared, I think. And I think he's going to get the win here.
Yeah, man, I agree. I'm definitely on Armfield here, but for me, I have a little bit of, I don't know if he's gonna get Hindsight out of there. There's part of me that thinks, Brady's really easy to hit, and that if Armfield, lands a lot of punches, he's gonna be able to get him away. But I don't know. For me, Brady's really tough, has a good chin, is gonna be able to survive. So for me, that's like the method of victory is a real tough one in this fight. So do you lean decision or by finish?
I think it'll be a decision personally, but
Yeah,
I could
that's
see him
probably
finish.
how
I
I would
mean,
go too,
Brady's
to be
striking
honest.
is not good, but yeah, I think it'll be
And
a
that's
decision.
ultimately what I think the difference is. I think Brady, is just not going to be able to make him have any danger on the feet. He's not going to have him worried about the striking so he can set up the takedown. I think on the feet it's going to be one-way traffic for Armfield, and that the takedowns, even if Brady gets some early on, as the fight goes on, they'll be labored, they'll be telegraphed, and Armfield's going to take over. But yeah, I'm a little stuck on whether I think it'll be decision or Armfield will get him out of there. Because, I do think Brady's really hittable, man. And I think he does take a lot of damage in some fights. And I'm a big fan of Armfield, man. I think he's someone who you kind of got to keep an eye out on. I think he's put in a lot of work. I think he's going to make his way up. Bantamweight is absolutely stacked. It's a sick division. So to get even into the top 15, you got to be insane. But I think Armfield's someone we should all keep our eyes on.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is a good fight for him too. I feel like stylistically, it's a pretty good matchup. I mean, he's not going to probably take a lot of damage, so if he wins, he could turn around and fight like real quick again. But yeah, man, this next fight, Aso Mbaye versus Jose Johnson, and I actually put a bet on this fight too, and the line went down a little bit. I bet on Jose Johnson. I think I got like plus 460, I believe, odds. And he was like at like plus 500 earlier in the week. And, I thought he looked decent on the scales. Like it looked like he made weight pretty easily, which is pretty shocking. Like it didn't seem like he was super sunk out or anything like that. And, yeah, man, I just think this is a hard fight. Like anytime you're getting a guy with that body type at 125, you're probably never sparring or training with many people like that, especially in live goes where you're going 100%. And Johnson, I mean, his grappling is decent to me. I feel like he doesn't have the best takedown defense, but earlier I was kind of watching his or not watching his fights before I went and refreshed and watched his fights. I was just remembering him being put on his back and things like that. But if you look at it, I mean, he has decent um, ability to sweep. He makes people work. He'll throw up that triangle, and I feel like his grappling is good enough to where he could potentially make Amvive work really hard to get the takedowns and to keep him down. And maybe Amvive won't be able to do too much damage on top. And I don't like how Amvive goes for that crackdown single, man. And it's like someone that's really long, like Johnson, they definitely could potentially take your back if you're doing that. I mean, but Amvive's super sick as a wrestler, man. I mean, extremely slick, and he has these real tricky takedowns that you don't really see very often. But I feel really small for the weight. He's like 5'4". So I don't know, man. I just feel like it's a tough fight. I think on the feet, Johnson's going to be a lot better. Just he's going to be able to keep the range with his kicks, with the boxing. And I feel like if he can give him some trouble on the ground, it could be a really close fight. And if Almeida gets his back, then you'll probably choke him out. I mean, you've seen Johnson get submitted with the rear naked choke a few times. But if he can avoid that position, I think it could end up being a really close fight, competitive fight. And yeah, man, I feel like this is a lot closer to like maybe not a pick 'em, but Johnson at like plus 175, plus 200, and you get him at like a huge price. So I like the odds for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't have the balls of steel like you to pick Jose Johnson. I think Asu, has just such a clear path to victory here, and I think he'll be able to get the job done. But I'm not sure if it was you who said it or someone, was talking about Jose Johnson on his Contender Series fight. Was coming into that fight as a favorite with a lot of hype behind him. So he's someone, who people thought could make something for himself in the UFC, and it's never really played out like that. But I mean, for him to be at 6 foot at 125 is so insane. Like I've tried to look into it. Like the one guy, there were a few people I remember like who were really tall at the division, like Jerome Rivera, who was absolutely, dog shit, like terrible, like the worst fighter ever. And he was only 5'10". So he's like a lot bigger. Like he's definitely the tallest fighter to ever fight at flyweight from what I can see at least. So I mean that definitely poses some problems, especially on the feet. I mean, Jose might pick him apart, dude. So I mean, I think you got a great bet with great value. The line's way too excuse me. The line's way too wide here, in my opinion. I would have Asu about like minus 200, minus 250 range. I think that's a lot more accurate. I'm I'm not able to bet Jose Johnson just because in my head I don't really see him winning. I think Asu just has such a clear game plan and has such a clear path to victory with the grappling. But I think you have a really great bet and really great value whether it hits or not.
Yeah, we'll see, man. I just feel like, Johnson definitely could get the win. And he was super confident this week, though. I mean, I think he's kind of just talking shit, but you say it like he wanted to be the 125, 135, 145, and 155 pound champ in UFC or some shit. I was
Four-weight
like,
champion is insane.
yeah, we'll see. But yeah, this will be the first one at 25 for him. And yeah, I like it. I'll say he gets the job done here. But next fight, Lucas Almeida versus Timmy Kwamba. And I like Kwamba a lot, man. I like his style. I feel like he's a really good prospect. I was impressed with his fight with Michael Stack at Tough Enough. I was actually there live, and then I rewatched the fight. And Michael Stack's a pretty good fighter. He's not like someone that ever went to the UFC or anything like that, but he was good in the LFA and tough guy. And Kwama just destroyed him, man. I mean, he was shooting really good straight punches. He had that head kick that ended the fight, and his stand up looks really good. He looks really slick. He is patient. You'll kind of wait and then let guys come to him, and then use his speed really effectively with those straight shots. And he can mix in the takedowns too. And I feel like that's going to be the game plan here. Just get Almeida to plot and walk forward, which he's going to do regardless, and just pick at him with those shots. Don't stick in the pocket and kind of be silly with Almeida. Even if you hurt him, you have to stay sharp because the guy's just looking to get in a war and land that left hook. I mean, that's really, to me, what he likes to do. He has decent striking. If you sit like in the pocket with him, you'll go to the body, and he has power, but he doesn't set his strikes up that well, man. He doesn't faint much. He's kind of a plotter, like I said, and I feel like Kwama is going to be a lot slicker on the feet. And if he can mix in takedowns and get on top, I think he can control Almeida pretty easily. It seems like Almeida has nothing on the ground. So I just feel like Kwama is going to get the win here. I think that UFC is giving him a good matchup because he came in, he was a good guy for the company. He fought up a weight class against Belogioki, who's a really good fighter, and he fought really well in that one. He's an extreme guy, Vegas guy, so I think they're trying to get him this dub here, and I feel like he's on a different level than Almeida, but Almeida just has that equalizer. With the power, you could land a shot on someone that's way better than him and get the win. But I feel like Timmy Kwamba is going to get the job done here.
Me too, man. I think he's a safe bet. I think, lines, all right. I don't know if I can straight bet it because it's a little juicy, up at like 200, but I think it's pretty safe parlay play. I mean, I think on the ground, Kwamba will be able to control with the wrestling, and on the feet, I think he's a lot slicker, a lot more dynamic, more well-rounded. We'll be able to use his kicks, mix in the striking. Yeah, I think Kwamba still has, a little bit to prove for me. I'm not completely sold on him. I haven't seen as much as I would like for me to really believe in him, really hammer this as an ultra confident play. But I think this will be a coming out party, and I think this is a matchup exactly like you said that the UFC is kind of setting him up to gain some momentum. Nothing against Lucas Almeida here, but I don't think this is the toughest matchup in the world for Timothy. And his last fight, against Oki, was a real, like you said, up a weight class. Oki's, a pretty high level prospect in his own right, a real tough guy. And Kwamba training out at Extreme Couture, I think this guy has all the skills to get the job done here and get his first win in the UFC and start to develop some hype. And I think the line is pretty reasonable, to be honest. I like it, I think it could be a little steeper.
Yeah, I think it's a good line. I did have a straight bet on Timmy Kwamba as well, so hopefully he gets the job done, and I do think he's going to get the win here. But this next fight, this is another one where I think the line could be wider here. I think Miles Johns, man, like you're getting some decent numbers on this guy in his last few fights because I feel like he at one point was a hype job where he came in and a lot of people bet him when he fought Mario Batista and probably another fight that I'm not remembering right now. And he dropped the ball. He took the loss. He looked like shit. And he's had these other fights where it's like he squeaks
Against your
by.
boy,
And,
Costaneda.
yeah, Castaneda.
He's
Yeah,
really the
Castaneda
one where
killed
he
him too.
dropped the ball for me.
Yeah, but it's like so he's had these fights like that where I think people soured on him. But I feel like he's an underrated guy in the weight, man. I mean, he's someone always I think I don't know if it's like he cuts too much weight or what it is, but it seems like whenever someone can kind of take his power and walk him down and make it like a crazy high volume fight, he can break down a little bit. But I don't think many guys are going to be able to do that with him in the UFC, man. I feel like he's not necessarily like he doesn't have that knockout power. Like I feel like there's a difference. Like some people have that knockout power, like one punch, like a Conor McGregor, where they're accurate, they're clean like that, and then some people have like where they're hitting like really heavy, where it still hurts, but maybe they're not knocking you out. And that's like Miles Johns, because when you see him landing on guys, you definitely see the impact, and I feel like he's one of the biggest hitters in the weight, but he doesn't necessarily have, a lot of those knockouts necessarily. But, ultimately, I just feel like when you look at it here, Miles Johns is the much younger guy. He's been looking good recently. He's won 3 fights in a row. His stand up is solid. He does a good job of pulling guys into his power punches. And this is a good matchup because Andrade isn't someone that's like a pressure fighter, even though he's known for throwing bombs and getting into wars and stuff like that. He still fights technically and he likes to pick his shots. He's not like a super high volume guy. So he could connect and land on Johns, maybe wear him out. But ultimately, I feel like Johns is going to be a lot faster, landing these better punches. And you got to look at Douglas Andrade's age, man. He's getting up there in age. He hasn't fought in over a year, so I think those things definitely matter. And you look at other things about him. I mean, I think he has like 33 fights or something like that. But his first 30 fights of his career, he had never gotten knocked down once. He never got dropped. And then you look at his last 3 fights, he's gotten dropped in 2 out of 3 fights. So I think he's definitely maybe his chin is not as good as it used to be, even though he's never been stopped with strikes before. He had that one TKO to Peteriano as a corner stoppage, but I think his durability maybe is going a little bit too. And Andrade, I mean, he could make it competitive, but I just think Miles Johns is going to get the win, and I think he could be like a minus 200. So I like Miles Johns here.
Yeah, and I think you were kind of like dancing over, hinting at, but Miles Johns plus 500 for knockout might be my favorite bet all night.
Yeah.
I'm going to be attacking that line. That's, huge value. and you laid it out, man. I mean, he's got the power. He hasn't always been able to get the finishes in the UFC, but he's able to put on the damage. And I think against the aging fighter here, Douglas De Silva de Andrade is a savage, man. And in his day, he's a really tough out. And I still think he can definitely put up a firefight here. I think we might get like a 1-round banger, like a barn burner where these guys are just kind of swinging for it. But, Miles Johns is a guy who has hurt me in the past. Specifically, I think back to that Costa fight. I was definitely on Miles Johns, definitely confident, and he really let me down there. But as of late, I've liked the way he's looked. I really liked the way he looked in that last fight. I think he kind of answered some questions about the gas tank. And I know, I think you said it, against Cody Gibson, maybe that's not the biggest win in the world, especially, pulling out a close fight. But I think I rate Miles Johns, and I think against the aged Douglas Silva de Andrade here, he'll be able to put him away. And I really like that knockout line at plus 500. Probably my favorite prop of the entire night, to be honest.
You got to answer for that one. If you had to pick one fight on this card to end in round 1, which fight would it be?
I mean, it has to be Weston Wilson, no?
Yeah, that one.
Or Nate Maness versus Jimmy Flick, man. I mean, because either way.
Yeah, I think those two are probably, I agree. Those two are probably like, if you had to look at first round finish, I think either of those, one of them is going to finish in the first round, you'd think. So all the other fights, I'm not sure if any of them, they could obviously, but I think all the other fights probably will go past the first. But
sneaky, I could see Kwamba getting a first round finish, getting a quick knockout, and Quinlan too, and even the main event. So I could see a few early round finishes.
Yeah, man. Talking about the main event, since you got that angle, I mean, what do you think about it? Who do you think would be the one getting the knockout here?
No knockouts. I think if there's a knockout, it's gonna be Perez. But I don't know. I think this is by far for me. The one fight I'm still not sold on. I still, I'll be to the last minute going back and forth on. Really, really tough fight for me to pick, man. I think Tyra has a huge submission threat, man. If you watch him, not the greatest wrestler in the world, but his grappling is nasty, man. I think if the fight does get to the ground in any sense, even if Perez is initiating the takedowns, which in my opinion would be a mistake from Perez, Tyra's very live for a finish. But for me, what makes it so difficult is how good Perez's takedown defense looked, man. I really can't be confident thinking Tyra's going to go out there and take Perez down with how good, Perez stuffed those takedowns against Muhammad Mokaev. So, I mean, really, as of right now, I think I'm going to go Perez decision, man. I guess I'm sleeping on Tyra. I know he's, a super, super high level prospect, and he can definitely tap Perez if it goes to the ground. I mean, I'm just kind of having a hard time visualizing that, though. I mean, maybe a slip or something, maybe a mistake. I mean, Perez, in my opinion, has shown some lapses in the fight IQ, especially in that Pantoja fight. I think he made, a massive mistake in that fight. That was a really bad showing, in my opinion. But Pantoja's, a dominant champion in the division, so that's the level that he's losing at. But yeah, really tough fight for me to pick. I guess, I mean, obviously I'm going to bet it because it's the main event. I don't know if that makes me degenerate or what, but, it's a real close fight in my opinion and could go either way. You're on Tyra right here. I know you think he gets it done. But what do you think? What do you think about the points I made about Tyra, struggling to get a takedown? Because for me, that's his obvious path to victory is a submission. If it hits the ground, of course, I mean, just look at the records, it's pretty obvious, but it's just Perez's takedown defense was so good in that fight against Mokaev.
No, yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, I agree with everything you said in terms of the matchup. I'm not like super confident on this main event either, and I'm not gonna be betting it personally. I mean, I just don't have a good read on who I think is gonna win. I think it's a tough fight, because Tyra, this is a huge step up in competition. He hasn't really faced very many guys that could even wrestle in the UFC. If you look at it, he's had like a lot of fairly easy matchups, I would say. Um, his last fight, Carlos Hernandez, he had been submitted before, I believe, in UFC. I think that Edgar Chaira's guy, like you saw, he was just giving up the takedowns by jumping guillotine every time. So yeah, I think this is definitely going to be a lot harder for him to get the fight to the ground. But I don't know. I just feel like Tyra is someone that is going to be getting a lot better every fight with his stand up as well, and I think he is going to be able to compete on the feet and do decently well. I think he's going to be able to land those straight punches, kind of just stay at range, and I feel like Perez is going to be a little bit hesitant just because he doesn't want to get in any entanglements. Because you look at Makayev, I mean, obviously he's a high level wrestler and things like that, but Tyra, he has a lot more threats. If they get in the clinch or something, like
Throws, yeah.
Tyra could get a throw, he could get to the back. He has that length, and even if he ends up on bottom, like let's say, which Makayev would never want to do, right? Like as a wrestler, he wouldn't want to be on his back, I wouldn't think. But with Tyra, he could maybe go for like a shit takedown that he knows he's
Exactly.
not going to get, and kind of pull guard and then try to create a scramble from there, and maybe he could get something happening that way. But Perez, I definitely could see him keeping it standing and using that boxing and that veteran savvy and getting the win. Another thing about it that we don't really know is the cardio for Tyra, like in the fourth and the fifth round, especially if he, like you said, is like shot like a few takedowns that got stuffed. I mean, maybe he'll get real tired, but yeah, man, I don't know. Perez, it's like he's taking these back to back to back fights. It seems like the weight cut's not bothering him, but I do worry, at some point, is there going to be some diminishing returns? Like he's fought 3 times or something in like 4 months. That's a lot of wear and tear. I mean, I guess he isn't taking a lot of damage in these fights, and he had a long time off, but I think that could play a small factor as well. And I don't know. I'm just leaning towards Tyra. But yeah, if I had to like really like give a confident pick on this fight, I really couldn't, because I just don't have a strong read. But Tyra would be my pick for this one on the main event. But yeah, we'll see what happens. Like I said, if I see Tyra like go for a few takedowns early that gets stuffed and he's like having to strike and looking a little awkward, then maybe he will gas. So maybe Perez live bet would be good in that scenario. But I feel like I got to see these guys match up in the cage before I kind of make any proclamations. It's hard for me to say, but yeah, man. Beaver Covington, you said, what about Asu round one? I mean, I'm going with Jose Johnson to get the win in that one. So I don't think he's going to finish him in round one. I mean, he could. I mean, I think that's his best chance to get the back in the first and they're both dry or something and choke him out. But yeah, I'm going with the underdog in that fight. But yeah, man, just to give you guys, some of my best plays or that we were talking about. I mean, I guess I would go with Josh Quinlan. That's probably my favorite play on the card. I feel like Quinlan is probably going to get the knockout as well, but minus 120, I think that's at a good price. And then I like Miles Johns. I think Timmy Kwamba is going to get the job done. So there's a few spots that I do like here. As far as some props, I guess I do like that Miles Johns plus 500 knockout prop, but I would have to look at a few. I mean, this card's going to be a light card for me betting wise. Don't have a ton of spots that I have here, a few, but yeah, man. I mean, what about you, Fitz? You got any confident picks you want to give out real quick?
Yeah, so I mean, I think we're pretty similarly aligned for this card. I mean, I like Quinlan a lot. We talked about early on, but I like that Nery and Bekov and Costa fight to go to decision. As far as props go, I love that Miles Johns plus 500, and I'm trying to look for it right now. Perez by decision plus 550. That's another one. I mean, I know I said I'm not too confident in Perez, but I like that plus 550. Nate Maness, by knockout, I think is a lock, but just a little too much juice. But I would say like a good parlay could be Armfield, Kwamba, and Maness. I think those three, you put them together, that's pretty solid. That would, I think, get a good return on those three money lines. Yeah, and Weston Wilson, is going to be the The pick of the week.
Yeah, hopefully one of us gets these picks right, so we don't both look stupid. Jose Johnson and Weston, one of the tall guys got to get the win. But yeah, I don't know. I think Johnson could get a knockout, but I feel like it would be later on in the fight. But man, if you're gonna bet him, if you have confidence in him, you're already getting a huge price on the money line.
Just take
So
the money line.
yeah, I wouldn't get cute with it. But yeah, I guess if you want to do that first round parlay, just do I don't even know what the odds would be on that. I mean, what's the odds for Nate Maness in round one? Is it plus money? And then or like that fight ends in round one. Yeah.
Fight ends in round one is minus
124. And then if you parlay that with the Wilsons, like with Weston Wilsons. So that'd be like minus 124.
Fight ends at minus 117. So
yeah, I mean, I guess you could get like almost plus 200 odds on that parlay if you did that, but I'll just bet the first one straight, and if you win, just put the profits on the second one if you're feeling it. But yeah, man. I mean, those are two fights that I think would most likely end in the first. But yeah, bro, thanks for joining me for another breakdown. We're gonna be back Monday. We're gonna be doing early look at the next card, which is a pretty good card, man, for that Saudi card. I'm excited. I'm gonna have a Nick Diaz bet, so that'll be fun. But yeah, man, thanks for joining me here, and thanks everyone for watching. And like I said, we'll be back soon, so make sure to tune in again. Hopefully, we give you guys some good bets. We can make some money, and besides that, man, we're out. Later.